Well, that was one hell of a season premiere. Honestly, after watching episode 1, I'm even more convinced this should have been the season 2 finale. The scale, the deaths, the dragon action, the emotional gut punches. This felt like a finale. It felt like HBO took the last 2 episodes of season 2, shoved them into season 3, and said, congratulations, you're waiting 2 years for the aftermath. And what an aftermath it's going to be. We've got major character deaths, dragon deaths, naval warfare, the winter wolves arriving, the dragon seeds taking flight, political scheming in King's Landing, and yes, the rumored Alicent and 𝐴𝐴𝐺 scene actually happened. Let's talk about it. So the kiss happened, and honestly, I thought Alicent handled it exactly the way she should have, because let's be real here, what do you do when the most dangerous man in Westeros, who also happens to ride Vhagar, suddenly decides this is a good idea? Alicent's reaction felt less romantic and more like someone trying to navigate a political minefield. There was a lot of, what the hell is happening? Energy mixed with, I need this lunatic to cooperate with my plans. Because at this point, Alicent is trying to maneuver events towards some kind of peaceful resolution, or at least what she thinks is a peaceful resolution. The irony, of course, is that she's furious Aegon is gone, not because she suddenly became Mother of the Year, but because she had a plan for Aegon, a very specific plan, and now he isn't around to fit neatly into it. What's wild is that Alicent spent years undermining one son, is now trying to maneuver around another son, and somehow still sees herself as the reasonable one in the room. At some point, we may need to acknowledge that Alicent's parenting record is absolutely catastrophic. Every single one of her children is a disaster in their own unique way. One thing I'm really curious moving forward is what happens with the dragon seeds, because after everything that just happened, I honestly wouldn't blame them if they immediately turned around and headed straight back to Dragonstone. It'll be interesting to see what happens when 𝐴𝐺 eventually shows up and they're not there, because they're most likely going to be gone, and that could create some major problems. Can we talk about Criston Cole for a minute? Because I genuinely don't know who this man is anymore. There was something almost surreal about watching him casually painting his house sigil while Gwen Hightower is talking about the widespread atrocities happening during the war. And Cole's reaction basically boils down to, yeah, anyways, that's it. No outrage, no moral condemnation, no concern, nothing. This is the same man who spent years presenting himself as the embodiment of honor, virtue, and righteousness. The same guy who constantly lectured everyone else. The same guy who acted like he alone knew what was right. And apparently seeing dragons reduce armies to ash completely emptied his integrity meter. The show is trying incredibly hard to portray Criston as a broken man, and honestly, it's working, but wow, what a fall. The Riverlands scenes were fantastic, simple as that. This is one of the reasons I love seeing the war expand beyond King's Landing and Dragonstone. The world suddenly feels bigger, the armies feel larger, the conflict feels more real, and I have to give credit where credit's due. To actually seeing lions with the Lannister army was such a cool touch. It's one of those little details from the lore that makes Westeros feel alive. The Lannisters are the lions of the West, so seeing real lions accompanying them just worked. More of that, please. And we know from lore that they still had lions around during this time, so everything just matches up. The Winter Wolves were incredible, absolutely incredible, and honestly, they might have had the best line of the episode. We've come to die for the Dragon Queen. What a statement, what an introduction. These are old northern warriors who know they're not coming home. They know exactly what this war is. They know exactly what their fate is likely to be, and they're doing it anyway. There's something so uniquely northern about that mindset. No grand speeches, no promises of glory, just acceptance, duty, and death. I loved every second of it. Can we discuss the insanity of Rhaenyra's own Queensguard locking her in her room? Because if I was Rhaenyra, someone is losing their head over that, and I know exactly who it's going to be, and it would be immediate. I understand their reasoning. I understand they're trying to protect her. I understand they don't want her flying into battle, but there is a line, and physically imprisoning your queen probably crosses it. Imagine being the ruler of an entire kingdom and your own bodyguards decide, nope, you're grounded. Absolutely ridiculous. Morton better start updating his resume. One thing that continues to stand out to me is how determined the show is to justify every decision Rhaenyra makes. Whenever she doesn't participate in battle, there's always another explanation, another obstacle, another reason, another person stopping her, another circumstance preventing her. The result is the show constantly frames her as wanting to fight while everyone else holds her back, and that's a notable departure from the source material, where some of these decisions simply weren't viewed as positively. And I understand why the writers are doing it. They want audiences to sympathize with her, but sometimes it feels a little too obvious. The weak, feeble body of a woman line especially felt like the show reaching for a point it had already made several times. We get it. You don't need to remind us every 10 minutes. Now let's talk about the main event, the Battle of the Gullet. And wow, just wow, this battle absolutely delivered. You could immediately see where the budget went. The scale was enormous, the ships looked fantastic, the dragon action looked fantastic, the chaos felt real. As someone who loves sailing and anything nautical, this was basically my Super Bowl. Every navigation scene had me locked in. Watching Watching fleets maneuver, watching formations break apart, watching dragons attack ships, I was completely invested. And honestly, I understand why HBO wanted more time. This wasn't a small battle sequence, this was one of the biggest action spectacles the franchise has ever attempted, and it showed. I was shocked by how quickly the Lannister twins disappeared. Even as someone familiar with the source material, I didn't expect it to happen so early, and while I've never been the president of the Lannister fan club, it still hit. They've been around for a while, they're recognizable faces, and suddenly they're gone. Or, maybe not entirely, we didn't see the body of one. And in fantasy television, there is one universal rule: no body, no certainty. So if you're Tylan believer, there's still room for hope, at least for now. Okay, at this point, I'm sorry to say this, I cannot do it. I cannot get invested in this Rhaenyra storyline. Every episode somehow makes me more frustrated. So let me get this straight. You have a newly bonded dragon, a dragon that represents one of the most valuable military assets in the entire war, and your plan is to immediately bring it into a massive conflict zone. Why? Why would you do that? Just lay low, hide, keep the dragon safe, let it grow, let your bond grow. But no, instead we're making decisions that seem designed to create disaster. And if certain events unfold the way they appear to be unfolding, Rhaenyra is not going to be thrilled when she finds out who played a role in what happened. Let's just leave it at that. Oh, because even knowing it was coming, I dreaded every second of it. Anyone who has read Fire and Blood or The World of Ice and Fire knew this moment was eventually arriving, but the knowledge didn't make it any easier. In fact, it made it worse, because every time Jace flew low, every time he turned, every time danger got close, I was bracing myself. The show did a really good job creating the sense of that doom coming, that impending doom. You know what's coming. You just don't know exactly when the hammer is going to fall. And when it finally does, it's devastating, because Jace wasn't just Rhaenyra's heir. He was one of the most capable people on Team Black, one of the most level-headed, one of the most likable, and now he's gone. The war changes completely after this. And finally, Vermax. God, I hate dragon deaths. Every single time. I know they're fictional. I know they're giant fire-breathing weapons of mass destruction. I don't care. I hate it. Watching Vermax struggle, watching him fall, watching him drown, it was awful. Not in a bad writing sense, in a heartbreaking sense. The dragons are some of the most fascinating creatures in the world, and every death feels like the loss of something irreplaceable. Vermax's final moments were brutal, and they perfectly captured what makes the dance of the dragons so tragic. This isn't just a war between rivals having a claim to the Iron Throne. It's the destruction of dragons themselves. The thing that made House Targaryen special, the thing that made this era magical. Every dragon death brings Westeros closer to losing that forever. Overall, fantastic premiere. The Battle of the Gullet delivered, the Winter Wolves were awesome, Jace's death was heartbreaking, Vermax's death was even worse. The Riverlands storyline looks promising, and the political dysfunction in King's Landing continues to be endlessly entertaining. My biggest criticism remains that this feels like the episode should have ended season 2. But taken on its own, this was a massive start to season 3. And if this is how the season begins, I can't imagine how insane the finale is going to be. But let me know what you thought of episode 1 in the comments below. Did the Battle of the Gullet live up to the hype? How did you feel about Jace's death? And am I being too hard on Rhaenyra? If you enjoyed this review, be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next House of the Dragon video.